Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. I hope you're enjoying your weekend. I made a video about Tyson Fury and Usyk and the fact that finally, Fury, uh, decided to sign for the fight, whereas previously he'd avoided it. And of course, a few of the Fury fanboys came out and said, "Oh, what are you talking about? What about AJ and Wilder? It's been like 6 or 7 years. They never say, yeah, all right, calm yourselves down. I know that no one can mention Tyson Fury without you mentioning Joshua, and that especially that's true of Frank Warren. But to be honest with you, I wouldn't say Wilder avoided AJ 6 years ago, whatever it was, but his team definitely did. And of course, we're all aware of the $110 million DAZN offer, and the fact that it was brushed to one side. That was when they were both undefeated. But I will say, recently, it does look to me as if Eddie Hearn and Joshua's team were not keen on the Wilder fight, because we're talking about AJ being deconstructed and put back together and not having much confidence, and you saw this with the two fights since he's been with Derrick James. There is some reasonable progress being made in terms of technique, but I think in terms of the actual the psychology behind AJ, he looks to me very, very jittery. And also, if you look at the end of the Helenius fight, I mean, yes, there was a very picturesque knockout, despite the fact he was extremely tentative throughout the fight. If you look at the end of him, when he jumped out the ring and he was swigging Conor McGregor's beer or whatever the hell it is, he had blood coming out of his nose, his mouth. He'd been in a fight. That's against Robert Helenius, who took the fight at a few days' notice. So yeah, I think there is some criticism is warranted for Joshua over the last, with regards to the Wilder fight, over the last several months. And of course we were hearing, yeah, it's going to happen at the end of the year, and of course nothing's going to happen. But I think this is a blessing in disguise for Joshua, because for the reasons I've just said, he is at that point where he's got this new trainer, Derrick James, who he seems intent on working very closely with. But as we've said before many times, it takes such a long time, probably more than a year, 2 years, to actually gel with a trainer. And yes, you can see shoots of recovery early on, but working with a trainer, the trainer isn't just a technical guy. He's someone who has to be a sort of amateur psychologist, he's someone that the fighter has to absolutely trust, and he has to absolutely trust the fighter. And you can't do that in 6 months. And yeah, they've had a couple of fights. So the one thing you can't say about Joshua is he hasn't been active. He has been active, and he had those back-to-back defeats to Usyk, which was, again, you've been 24 rounds with Alexander Usyk. It's not. I know he's nearly stopped at the end of the first fight, but he didn't do too badly. He was he was beaten clearly on both occasions. But there's no real shame in losing back-to-back 12-rounders with Alexander Usyk. The guy's a fistic genius. So I think the fact that Joshua is on the mend, shall we say, and they are trying to, reinvent him. Is it a case of reinventing him, or is it a case of reminding him what he's good at, and maybe honing the skills, but actually mentally trying to get him back to the point where he was that real killer, where he would take chances, where he would go after someone and risk getting knocked out and risk getting chinned. Like I always think of the first or the only Dillian White fight, where he just came out and he was looking to end White in the first round, and he was poking his tongue out, and he was really laying it on White. And before that fight, of course, White had talked a lot of trash and beefed the fight up, and White prides himself on being a bit of a road guy. And Joshua was like, oh, okay, I'm from Watford. I'm from the soft side of the tracks. Okay, we'll see what happens when the bell goes. And when the bell went, Joshua put it on him. Well, we need to see that Joshua again. Are we ever going to see it again? I think it's unlikely. But you just never know. In time, people mature. We talk about this word maturity. You can mature as a fighter. Technically, you can become mature. You can add strings to your bow, but emotionally, to mature emotionally, that's a hard thing to fast track. It does come with life experience, but at the same time you can have a life experience and it can take you a long time to sort of sift through it and fathom it, and the penny drops and suddenly emotionally you become psychologically accepting of things. And I think it's the long road for Joshua. Oh, as much contempt as I have for the Fury fanboys, I'm not going to lie, I think that recently Joshua has, or his team maybe, have been on the back foot regarding the Wilder the fight. I don't think they've been keen on it at all. And let's not forget that with regards to Wilder, he's been extremely inactive. He's had one round or less than a round against Hellenius since the third Fury fight, where it was a knockdown, drag him out, barn burner. God knows what that took out of him. He's in his late 30s. He's older than Joshua. But the one thing you got to say about Deontay Wilder is, man, you got to carry that guy out. You got to. He goes out in his shield. That guy has courage by the skipful. He's a magnificently raw, ready, never say die, fighting man, a real fighting man. And I think that's why Fury probably respects him a lot more than he might let on. He has actually said that in certain interviews, he says, well, credit to Wilder. But I think he knows what he obviously knows what Wilder's capable of, and he admires it as well. I think that's probably the angle that Joshua's team looked at and thought, we don't really need that fight next, because this guy, he could be shot to bits, but he's not going out unless you nail him to the canvas. And Joshua, I think if Joshua had shown a real fortitude, a real, go forward, be on the front foot, a great deal of confidence, a great deal of maybe what Wilder has psychologically, I think they'd have been more keen to put him in. But anyway, what's next for Joshua, if not Wilder? Well, I would like to see him go in there with someone like Bacoli. I wouldn't put him in with Frank Sanchez, Jared Anderson. That would be a calculated gamble. Maybe, I don't know. But someone like a Bacoli, someone who's a live guy, but where you're not an underdog, but at the same time there ain't a lot in it. I think gradually it has to be incremental steps, and that's difficult to do because high risk means high reward for most fighters. That's what they want. And I just feel that a Bacoli, who else have we got in there? Someone mentioned Tony Yoka as a good crossroads fight for Joshua. I would make Joshua a favourite over Yoka, definitely. But that might not be a bad shout, because Yoka's coming off back-to-back defeats and his career needs resurrecting. A third defeat on the trot would be surely fatal. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's not bad. It's maybe a good chance to, show some of the things that Joshua and James have been trying out in the gym. But incremental steps. I see no hurry, because Joshua's not old for a heavyweight. He's fighting quite regularly. He wants to fight one more time before the end of the year. That'll be 3 fights in 2023, which is really good. But there should be no quantum leaps. And I think the fact that Fury has finally signed to fight Usyk means that the eyes are away from Joshua. And that's a good thing. And the eyes are away from Wilder as well. Wilder needs to fight. I mean, these PBC guys don't fight nearly enough. But, yeah. So who do you think Joshua should fight next? Do you think he can ever regain at least some of his sort of luster? Do you think you can name some names? Just tell me who you think he can fight next. And Wilder, where do you think he stands in his career? Because what is he, 38 now? Something like that? I don't know. Anyway, comments below, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the like button and spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Please subscribe if you're new, that helps us a big deal. Thanks for your time as always. I shall read your comments and bye for now.